Bradley stood at the front door and hollered, "Mrs. Ebble is a liar. Don't believe anything she tells you." Bradley's mother got into the car, gritted her teeth and drove to school. She was just as afraid as Bradley, if not more so, of what Mrs. Ebble would tell her. She wanted to believe Bradley when he told her he was getting all A's or that he was elected class president. She tried to fool herself that it could be true. Even though she knew it couldn't, she knew her son, and she knew Mrs. Ebble wouldn't take the trouble to call her on the phone if everything was really as wonderful as Bradley said it was. Still, she hoped. She opened the door to Bradley's classroom. No one was there. "Hello?" she called out timidly. She looked around. There was a bulletin board covered with A papers. She looked from one paper to another and hoped with all her heart that she'd see one with Bradley's name on it. She didn't. In the back corner of the room she saw a chart that listed the name of every student in the class. Next to each name was a row of gold stars. Next to Bradley Chalkers, there were no stars. "Mrs. Chalkers?" Startled, she turned around to see Mrs. Ebble. "Oh, you scared me," she said, and then smiled. Mrs. Ebble didn't smile. Mrs. Chalkers sat at a chair next to the teacher's desk and bravely listened as Mrs. Ebble told her about Bradley. There was nothing Mrs. Ebble said that she didn't already know. Still, it hurt to hear it. "Deep down, he really is a good boy," she tried to tell Bradley's teacher. "I'm sure he has a lot of good qualities," said Mrs. Ebble. "However, I have 28 other children in the class, and I can't spend all my time trying to help Bradley. He has to decide whether he wants to be a part of the class or not. And if he doesn't want to be a part of the class, then he shouldn't be here. He just makes it that much harder for everyone else." "What can I do?" asked Bradley's mother. "The school has just hired a counsellor," said Mrs. Ebble. "I'd like your permission for Bradley to begin seeing her once a week." "Anything that will help my son," said Mrs. Chalkers. "I don't know if she can help him or not," said Mrs. Ebble. "Bradley has a very serious behaviour problem. If he doesn't show improvement soon, more drastic measures will have to be taken." "Deep down he really is a good boy," said Bradley's mother. "Well, let's go and meet the counsellor," said Mrs. Ebble. She led Bradley's mother down the halls to the counsellor's office. The door was open, but no one was there. Bradley's mother stepped into the room. Boxes were everywhere. Some were turned over, with their contents half spilled onto the floor. A yellow ladder lay on its side. In the centre of the room was a round table surrounded by chairs, but the table and chairs were covered with papers and boxes and games and books. There was hardly any room for Bradley's mother and teacher to stand. "She's just moving in," Mrs. Ebble explained. "I'm sure she'll have it cleaned up by tomorrow." Mrs. Chalkers shrugged. She picked up a dolphin puppet from an open box on the table and put her hand inside it. Suddenly there was a loud grunt and a young woman entered the room. She dropped the box she was carrying and more than 100 crayons spilled out across the floor. "Oh, hello," she said. She was a lot younger than either Mrs. Ebble or Mrs. Chalkers. She wore blue jeans and a red t-shirt with rock and roll written across it in light blue letters. She had light brown hair, almost blonde, and clear blue eyes. "I'm Carla Davis," she said, and held out her hand. Bradley's mother stared at her a moment, then reached out to shake her hand, but suddenly realised she was still wearing the dolphin puppet. She quickly removed it and put it back in the box on the table. The counsellor smiled. "She needs to sign the form so that you can start seeing her son," said Mrs. Ebble. Miss Davis looked hopelessly around her office. "They're around here somewhere," she muttered, then began tearing into the boxes. "Perhaps I'd better come back," said Bradley's mother. "Found them," said the counsellor, holding up the forms. She cleared a space on the round table by pushing away a box, and she gave Mrs. Chalkers a form to sign. Bradley's mother looked around the messy office, then at the young woman with the rock and roll t-shirt. She shrugged her shoulders and signed her name. Miss Davis took the form from her. "Oh, you're Bradley Chalkers' mother!" Mrs. Chalkers nodded. "You would not believe all the horror stories I've heard about Bradley Chalkers," said the new counsellor. "I've been here less than 3 hours, but it seems like every teacher in the school has dropped by to warn me about him." "Oh, deep down he really is," Bradley's mother started to say. "I can't wait to meet him." the counsellor interrupted. "He sounds charming. Just delightful." That is sad. That is sad. I agree. Whoever just said that was sad. Was that Ella? At dinner, Bradley's father asked how the meeting with Bradley's teacher went. Bradley looked down at his mashed potatoes. "Fine," said his mother. "Bradley's doing very well." "Good. Glad to hear it," said his father. Bradley was glad to hear it too. Later that evening, his mother came into his room. "I met Miss Davis, the new counsellor," she said. "You're going to begin seeing her tomorrow?" "No," said Bradley, "I won't go." "Please, Bradley, don't be that way. She can help you if you'll let her." "I don't need any help. You said I was doing very well." "Did you want me to tell your father the truth? Do you want to be sent to military school? Maybe he's right. I don't know. Maybe that's what you need." "You said I was doing very well. I heard you." "Please, Bradley," said his mother, "give Miss Davis a chance, please." "You should have taken me to the zoo." It was drizzling the next morning as Bradley walked to school. He wore red rubber boots and a yellow raincoat. He stamped in every puddle along the way, making big splashes. He suddenly stopped when he saw Jeff standing next to the school under the overhang. Bradley's right foot remained in the centre of a puddle as he stared at his one and only friend. He took a deep breath. And then he slowly walked towards Jeff. "He has to like me," he tried to convince himself. "I gave him $1. Didn't give him $1, did he? He gave him his own dollar back. "Hi, Bradley," Jeff greeted him. He didn't answer. "If you want, I can help you with your homework sometimes," Jeff offered. "I know I'm new here, but I'm pretty smart. And we learnt the same stuff at my old school." He shrugged modestly. Bradley looked at Jeff as if he were from outer space. "I don't need any help," he said. "I'm the smartest kid in the class. Ask anyone." This next line's one of the saddest lines, I think. They headed for Mrs. Ebble's room, side by side, but not necessarily together. That's sad. Right, final chapter for the day. Jeff Fishkin was hopelessly lost. He clutched his hall pass as he looked down the long, empty corridor. The school seemed so big to him. He was on his way to see the new counsellor. She was supposed to help him adjust to his new environment. Now, he not only didn't know how to get to her office, he had no idea how to get back to Mrs. Ebble's class either. The floor was slippery. It had started raining during recess and the kids had tracked water and mud inside with them. A teacher carrying a stack of papers stepped out of the door and Jeff hurried up to her. "Can you tell me where the counsellor's office is, please?" he asked. His voice trembled. The teacher first checked to make sure he had a hall pass. Then she said, "The counsellor's office. Let's see. Go down the hall to the end, turn right, third door on the left." "Thank you very much," said Jeff. He started to go. "No, wait," said the teacher. "That's not right. She's in the new office in the other wing. Turn round, go back the way you just came, turn left at the end of the hall, second on your right." "Thank you," Jeff said again. He walked to the end of the hall, turned right, counted the second door on his left and pushed it open. A girl with red hair and a freckled face was washing her hands at the sink. When she saw Jeff, her mouth dropped open. "What are you doing in here?" she asked. "Huh?" Jeff uttered. "Get out of here!" she yelled. "This is the girls' bathroom!" Jeff froze. He covered his face with his hands, then he dashed out of the door. "There's a boy in the girls' bathroom!" the girls screamed after him. He raced down the hall. Suddenly his feet slipped out from under him. He waved his arms wildly as he tried to keep his balance. Then he flopped down on the floor. "Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no," he groaned. "What have I done? Why didn't I just read the sign on the door? This is the worst day of my whole life." Suddenly he realised he was no longer holding the hall pass. He stood up and he frantically looked around. "Don't tell me I left it in the girls' bathroom." He heard someone coming and he hurried off in the opposite direction. He rounded the corner, then spotted what looked like some kind of storage room. It was cluttered with boxes. He ducked inside and he closed the door behind him. "Hello," said a voice. He spun around. A woman stepped off a yellow ladder. "You must be Jeff," she said. "I'm Carla Davis." She smiled and she held out her hand. "I'm so glad you've come. I was afraid you might get lost." And that's the end of chapter 6. And they're the 3 chapters that you're going to need for your English lessons for next week. So I've recorded that.